oil-rich kingdom of Iran and its pro-Western Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, witnessed a contest for power beginning August 16, 1953, between forces loyal to the Shah and those supporting the red-backed regime of Premier Mosaddegh. The Shah lost his throne temporarily when his army failed to oust the elderly and dictatorial-minded premier with whom the Shah was once on friendly terms. With his queen, the young Shah was forced to flee his country. Violent mobs, anti-British and sometimes anti-American, frequently rioted in Tehran's streets. Sparked by the communists who coveted Iranian oil, the unrest strengthened the premier's hand. In Rome, where he had fled, the Shah received the astounding news on August 19th that Iranian royalists led by army troops had overthrown the dictatorial premier. It was the allegiance to the Shah by a courageous military that turned the tide. Banners of the ruler were held high where, but brief hours before in Tehran, there had been an orgy of anti-monarchist sentiment by Mossadegh's supporters. Savage street fighting was ultimately to cost hundreds of lives in the capital alone. All statues to royalty were pulled down from their pedestals. Then the army turned against its Mossadegh-appointed officers and assured the restoration of the Shah. With the news confirmed, the Shah returned to Iran and at his first press conference emphasized his country's desperate need of financial help. His urgent appeal was answered by President Eisenhower, assuring Iran of sympathetic American consideration. Soon, with American help, the Shah and his people saw Iran's financial stability being restored for the first time since Mossadegh's nationalization of the oil industry and closing of the Averell refinery. A new long-term contract was signed between Iran and 8 Western oil concerns to operate the former Anglo-Iranian plant, paying Iran 50% of all earnings. For the first time since June 1951, a British tanker was being loaded. Iranian oil flowed again. In its internal affairs, to ensure mass welfare in Iran, an increase in direct taxation on hitherto privileged landholders and people of high income was being developed. Meanwhile, Mossadegh, past 70 and a semi-invalid, faced trial for treason late in 1953. He declared himself still legal premier of Iran and on the stand railed at the court daily for hours. Declaring the court incompetent to try him, he even threatened suicide. A 5-man military tribunal convicted him of having attempted to lead a revolt against the Shah, and he was sentenced to 3 years in solitary confinement.
In far-off Iran, the conflict over nationalization of Iran's British-owned oil fields was a continuing menace to peace. In Tehran, presidential envoy W. Averell Harriman and Ambassador Grady met with the Shah of Iran to forestall a complete collapse.
Under Reza Shah's son, needed land reforms are changing old patterns and bringing hope
he had feared might never come about. Iran, too, celebrated a long-hoped-for royal event, the birth of an heir to Shah Mohammad Pahlavi and his third queen, an event necessary to the continuation of the Iran dynasty.
The Shah of Iran is received by President de Gaulle at the Élysée Palace, the first Iranian sovereign to visit France in 75 years. The 41-year-old Shah is on a 3-day state visit to the country, and he is accompanied by his wife, who was a student of architecture in Paris before she ascended to the peacock throne of Iran in December of 1959. There's a glittering expanse of silver and crystal on snowy damask for the formal dinner in honor of the Middle Eastern ruler. With the formality and pomp that is uniquely French, the Shah receives treatment rarely accorded a visiting dignitary. France demonstrates she wants the Shah as a friend.
These targets. Demonstrators protest outside the West Berlin Opera House, where the Shah of Iran with Empress Farah attends a performance of Mozart's Magic Flute. Some 2,000 were in the mob. Denouncing the Shah as a murderer who arrests, tortures, and kills political opponents, the crowd clashes with Berlin police. 1 student was killed, another 44 injured, including 20 policemen. 47 people were arrested and jailed. Riots have accompanied the 10-day state visit of the Shah in every West German industrial and tourist center to which he has gone.
A gala reception was held in Brühl Castle near Cologne for the Emperor of Iran and his wife, who arrived in the Federal Republic for a 9-day state's visit. Officially greeting his guests, Federal President Heinrich Lübke recalled the friendly relations between their two peoples, which have existed for over a century. Following a meeting with Chancellor Kiesinger in Bonn, the Shah traveled on to Munich. The Empress visited a model orphans' village near the Bavarian capital. Social reforms in Persia also call for the construction of such villages for parentless children. Berlin was a special point of interest for the reigning couple. After passing along the wall, they were driven to the city hall in Schöneberg. The Shah and Empress Farah Diba signed the Golden Book of the old German capital city in the chambers of Berlin's Senate. They completed their Germany trip in Hamburg. The official visit resulted in several agreements, including West Germany's promise of financial aid and technical assistance for the further industrialization of Persia.
Persians' instinctive love for pageantry is realized as Iranians decorate their streets and buildings for the long-awaited coronation of their Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. Portraits of the royal family include Empress Farah and Crown Prince Reza. The Shah ruled for 26 years without crown until he had an heir and built Iran's economy. Newly refurbished Golestan Palace and its coronation hall are readied as the city takes on atmosphere. Many of the flags and decorations are symbols of loyalty. The real Shah's crown is placed on his head by himself during the elaborate ceremony. Belonging to his father, it's studded with over 3,000 diamonds. The coronation of the Shah and his empress, the first crowned queen in Iran's history, brings joy to this tiny nation. Golestan Palace reflects the pomp of old Persia, and its Hall of Mirrors is the scene of a long-awaited coronation ceremony. The Shah of Iran refused the crown 26 years ago, preferring to battle poverty and illiteracy so that his coronation would symbolize achievement, not merely succession. Before hundreds of dignitaries, the 48-year-old leader proceeds to the gem-covered peacock throne. The Shah crowns himself in a tradition which goes back 25 centuries. His title is King of Kings, and he becomes Emperor of his nation. Empress Farah kneels on a gold cushion to become the first crowned queen in Iran's history. The Shah's third wife, she is the first to give him a male heir. Iran's newly crowned royal family includes 6-year-old Crown Prince Reza, heir to the throne. The modern monarch pledges his life to Iran's progress and prosperity as his nation celebrates the coronation for which they waited 26
And because of the great leadership of the Shah, is an island of stability in one of the more troubled areas of the world.
But that was changing fast. By late 1978, Iranians were no longer tolerating the Shah's excesses. Demonstrators were shot in the streets. More and more protesters waved pictures of the Shah's most powerful enemy. In France, Khomeini was a virtual government in exile, fueling the religious revolution at home.
Oh, my people, Do not hesitate. You have the power. Do not be afraid of these superpowers.
Realizing that he had lost his grip on his country, the Shah and his family fled. On February 1st, 1979, Khomeini returned to a tumultuous, emotional welcome. The country was his. In October, against the strong advice of the State Department, President Carter allowed the Shah to enter the country for cancer treatment. That was all the fuel the student radicals in Tehran needed.
Liking the script, the Shah prepares to leave Iran in mid-January, ostensibly for a vacation. But first he sets up a Regency Council to rule in his absence, with Shapur Bakhtiar installed as Prime Minister. Maybe with the Shah away, Bakhtiar can settle the many problems of Iran. During his 37-year reign, the Shah has made Iran the most westernized of the Muslim countries. In so doing, he has continually undercut the long-held power of Muslim religious leaders. Even Bakhtiar seems unsure the Shah will return.
This is up to a lot of things. I hope that we can settle all disputes and misunderstandings between the king and the nation. We hope.
So the monarchy would stay?
I hope.